Okay, welcome.
There we go.
Today is Tuesday, August the 7th, 2018. This is a work session for the Board of County Commissioners of Pitkin County, and this is their very first meeting in our new meeting room in our amazing new building. Our building is the Pitkin County Administration and Sheriff's Office building, and this is quite exciting for us to be in our new building. So I would like to introduce the first item on our agenda. And it is a staff presentation of the Healthy Community Fund ballot question and a resolution. So please introduce yourselves for the public. And we're ready to roll, and this is exciting. Welcome.
It is. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am Mitzi Lettingham, and I work in Pitkin Human Services and have managed the Healthy Community Fund for 10 years.
Ann Sundin, Human Services Director.
Karen Kenneman, Public Health Director.
Welcome,
Great.
ladies.
Thank you so much. So we're here today in preparation for tomorrow, which is first reading and setting for second reading and public hearing, a resolution approving a ballot question for the renewal and increase of the Healthy Community Fund. And just as a background, you all know the Healthy Community Fund has been in existence since 2002. And it was renewed in 2006 and 2011. It sunsets at the end of 2018. And so you all have been working for the last 6 months with the staff to sort of look forward to what's the best set of circumstances and elements of a ballot question. And so there was a meeting on July 24th. The BOCC gave us direction, and so we're bringing forward to you ballot questions and resolutions. One thing that we're going to talk about today is that upon further research, there was some information that the treasurer's fees, the fees and the revenues that go along with a property tax could be such that it gives us an opportunity to think about requesting more money so that we can give more money to the agencies. So we're going to present 2 ballot questions for your consideration to choose one or the other, and then we're going to go through the resolution. What we have to do today is get direction from you all so that tomorrow we will hand you at your direction today the resolution and the ballot question that you are all comfortable with for first reading. So just a reminder, and I know this is little small font, but from this point on, just a reminder that the Financial Advisory Board met on August 1st, so we have some feedback from them. Today, August 7th, you all are reviewing the ballot question for tomorrow's first reading. Then the treasurer will send the draft that you all approve on first reading to bond counsel for their review. And on August 10th, the clerk publishes the resolution and ballot question on the website. And on August 22nd, the Board of County Commissioners will hold a second reading and public hearing on the ballot question. If it is approved at that point, it happens that it gets certified by the 7th of September. And then if it isn't approved at that point, if you're making changes still, there will have to be an emergency hearing in order to get the question certified by the 7th. Okay, so that's the schedule that we're on. And I talked about the history of the fund. I don't think I need to say that again. Just a reminder, in 2018, 70 agencies were funded, and the fund distributed $2.3 million to agencies that are performing family support, children's support, mental health services, substance abuse services, senior services, public health services, community treasures such as Ski Club, and there are so many people in this community that are touched by the support of these programs. In the memo from July 24th, I just wanted to remind everyone that our best idea is that in 2019 we're going to need about 3.2 million. If we were to cover all the mandated services, all of the services that we've been funding with no increase, and about 400,000 to fill some gaps in services. And with that, knowing that we needed that much, we came in and I'm just going to go one more. We came in and staff recommended an increase of 700,000, which would get us to about 3,029,000, and that was $7.03 per 100,000 worth of value, and that it would reflect an increase of $1.62 from the current amount. It's about a 30% increase and you all had asked, what is the mill levy?
Thank you.
So a 0.97 mill levy, it's still less than 1 mill. When we realized that the treasurer's fees could potentially reduce from that 3.2 million that we need, this would generate 3,029,000. So we're already at a $200,000 gap potentially. The treasurer's fees potentially would bring us down. I'm going to skip again because the treasurer's fees could bring us down another about 90,000. So this slide tells you how property taxes, this dedicated property tax, enjoys some revenues from motor vehicle, and it also endures some costs, right? The treasurer's fees cover the internal support services from the county. If at the 3,029,000, which is the center column here, the treasurer's fees are about 151,000, a little more than that. Then we have to save money for Tabor, the contingency fee. We have some saved now, so that number is small. There's some investment income that we receive, and then there's the motor vehicle, dedicated motor vehicle income that we receive. All of that would reduce the amount we could allocate to 2.9 million. These numbers are so big, they're hard to say. 2,986,752. And so we quickly looked at what if we raised the amount to 750,000. So that's,
That's back to the first one.
Gotta go next. Sorry. If we generated 750,000 increase, it would bring in 3,079,000. You can see the cost is pennies, like 11 or 12 cents more, $7.15 per $100,000 of value. $1.74 increase, 32% increase from the current mill. The mill, it would be 0.993, still less than 1 mill. And we could use those dollars to cover the cost. I said loss, but it's really the cost of the treasurer fee. And we would be able to use the funds to deal with the gaps in mental health, housing stability, and the cost of living increase for the nonprofits. Many of our agencies have been partners for 3 years. They haven't seen an increase in 3 years. We hold them at a certain rate. So if we do this, then let's see, sorry, too many pages. Then here are the costs. The treasurer's fees only go up a couple of thousand. The shortfall contingency and the investment income remain the same. The motor vehicle income goes up a little bit, but it gives us an extra 50,000 as a starting place for these essential services. So that's what we were thinking, and that's why you have 2 questions in front of you, 1A and 1B. And I think, does anyone know why it doesn't just go forward? Sorry.
This is a new computer.
So here's a comparison. We are recommending that the percentages for the broad categories would remain the same. 22% for the core public health, which includes what public health does as well as the clinical nursing services for the core services. Senior services at 15%, community nonprofits at 12%, health and human service agencies at 46%, and then we have not ever included the up to 5% that can be used for healthy community fund management. So that sounds big, but really what it is accountability. It's our coordinator who helps us gather the grants. It helps agencies with outcome measures. We do site visits. We're really out there ensuring that these agencies are viable and strong, connecting to each other, collaborating, and being part of the system of care that we're looking at. So that amount, that 5%, we currently are only drawing 4.5%, and the way the resolution reads is that that you all can approve up to 5%. So that number is sitting there, and you can see on the right, if we had a $750,000 model, how much would go to those broad categories, and just to the left, if it were a $700,000 funding model. On the far left, we've outlined what those agencies need, or what those broad categories need. $681,000 for the core public health, $460,000 for senior services, community nonprofits. And the thing to keep in mind is that we as staff have come to terms with either the $700,000 or $750,000 model. Core public health and senior services are likely to be okay with a little less than what we projected they needed because they have other revenues. Not much less, but a little bit less. So that is the picture of to sort of help us make decisions about both the percentages and the amount. And we'll come back to this. I'll try to get through the rest of it and then we can come back. The Healthy Community Fund has increased every time it's been renewed, 37% in 2006, 35% in 2011. And at $700,000, it's a 30% increase. At $750,000, it's a 32% increase. We have to review with you today the ballot language, and we can do that. It's at the direction of all of you guys. Did you have a question?
I think Rachel has a question or a comment.
Yeah, I did. I just first a comment. You know, when we have groups like the Senior Center who have other revenues, that's always contingent on the federal budget each year and how much they actually allocate. And we've seen kind of declining support for any sort of domestic program. So I appreciate that they will hopefully have other revenues, but it's really less assured than it used to be in the past. So
For sure.
I want to note that. And then secondly, going through the memo, I found the community nonprofits percentage changed from page to page. In that,
yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that.
okay, yeah, page
It's
11
wrong
says
in
it's
the
down to
memo.
11%.
It's wrong in the memo.
Okay.
12% is correct.
Well, I wanted to ask why that was going down from 13% to 12%. And we saw particularly that environmental groups are folded into that category, and those seem to rate very high on the polling and survey. So I know it's only 1%, but I'd hate to have passed this and then find out we're not really able to allocate more towards those groups.
So senior services went down 6% as well.
Okay.
And the reason is that when you increase the fund by 700,000 or 750, the percentage of what's needed, it doesn't have to be as high. So if
Okay.
you look at this table in particular, look at community nonprofits here. What we need to be across the board funding from 2018 is $315,000. In the $700,000 model, it goes up. With even 12%, they're still getting an increase, and even more at the 750. So, so the same is true with senior services, right? The 448 will be a good amount for them, and it's close to what they needed, and it goes up at the 750 level.
Okay, I see that, Nan. Thank you so much for that explanation, because certainly those in the senior services may well avail themselves of some of the other public health issues and concerns.
And remember that the percentages are recommendations, and they go in the resolution, but very quickly after we identify the percentages is a statement that says the Citizen Grant Review Committee can recommend adjustments to these based on community need. So it's a starting place. We're not tied to it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I have a question, Nan, too, though. For any other funding, outside of what Pitkin County is asking here, isn't there always an associated cost that goes back to the treasurer for collecting the monies and dispersing them out?
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon
No.
that dollar value is built into the funding need requested.
Thank you. It's a
No, it's
normal
gonna-
part.
Yeah, in fact, it's a statutory requirement that those percentages be charged, and they're charged for all entities that have a property tax, and they cover the costs of assessing, the treasurer's cost for collecting and dispersing, and proper auditing and oversight.
So I think that's important for the public to know, that it's not something the treasurer's office can waive.
Yes.
That it's a requirement, and that it's built into what others do in this community when they're raising funds.
Right.
So
And
that's kind of the norm.
That is the norm, and the place to waive is really around the Healthy Community Fund management or accountability area. And that's where we have in the past put more money to agencies, and the county has taken on more of the responsibility. So it's the first time we've put it in the model.
That's good to know.
But it's always been a part of the option. Okay? Yeah.
Yes, Greg?
Question on, if you could elaborate for us, just what percentage or how, or dollar amount of this is part of the mandated costs? For instance, if this fund were to go away, we still are on the hook for an awful lot of money.
Right.
So I'd love to have this for the public meeting, just so people understand that.
Right, so going back to this slide, in the memo on July 24th, we outlined two tables for you, I believe. One is our mandatory services, which includes anything that was federally, state, or locally legislated. And so statewide, we're legislated for public health. We have mandated services for senior services, mandated for mental health services because we have intergovernmental agreements, the whole integrated care, RFP, and detox, and one other, healthcare from Mountain Family Health Center. That all totals about $1,705,000. It's a big amount, but it's really about the core services for our community. Then the other list, the desirable services, is the services that we all consider part of our the social fabric of this community. The buddy program, family visitor program, youth zone, the ski club, spellbinders, all of those programs that help us live an enriched life and a resilient life in our community. The last number, the 370,000, was our best bet for what is currently underserved for mental health and housing stability. When we went to RFP, a few of our partners didn't apply through the RFP. We're hoping that if the fund is renewed, we can bring them back because they provide critical services for substance abuse and mental health. So those are the numbers that we're trying to accommodate. Does that help?
That does help. And then, so for the mandated services, say this fund didn't pass, this would be coming from our general fund, as I understand.
That's right.
right?
That would probably be the bottom limit. I'm sure that there would have to be something other
We
funds.
would have to reduce that amount.
Yeah.
While it's mandated with funds available. So we would go to a very simple model. The desirable services would be cut entirely, and there would be no gap funding.
Right, and
It would be a significant hit both financially and philosophically for the county.
that would probably affect 60 of our nonprofits, or to some extent.
65 probably. Yeah, I think the hit would really be to the community, because these services are so integrated in the fabric of who we are as a community, and our family and friends and coworkers who access these services.
Right.
It would
Okay.
impact those agencies. So
Language?
let me ask you, we could talk about amount and ballot question first and then go into language, or would you rather me go through the presentation and then we can?
Let's finish the presentation and
Okay.
we'll just discuss. That sounds
Alrighty,
good. Thanks,
so
Nan.
we're moving along to the ballot language. This is all the language that you all approved. We did consider language on the mental health question about education, which was a request, and talk to our mental health peers who feel that education is a part of prevention and it would be redundant. So we didn't include it, but we did consider that request. And otherwise, these protecting children and their families who are at risk, the quality of natural resources, survivors of domestic violence, mental health and substance abuse programs, care for the terminally ill, physical, social, educational and recreational activities for older adults, access to prevention and integrated health, and working with developmentally disabled citizens and their families. Those are the priorities of the ballot language, and as we move forward, if the fund is approved, the Citizen Grant Review Committee reviews these as the highest priority. It doesn't eliminate or reduce the other community treasures and other programs that maybe don't fit specifically into this, but they're not the first tier priority. So the ballot question has always been super important for the programs that are of most value to try to preserve. And then on the resolution updates, we can come back to this slide. I just outlined in each bullet what exactly is different in this resolution from 2011, so we could go through that when you're ready to do that. And we did meet with the Financial Advisory Board on the 1st of August and had a very robust discussion. All 4 members were present, 1 by phone, 3 in person, as well staff was there. And we tested out the idea of 700, 750 in terms of the increase, and generally, I would say the group was in favor of the 750. They said it didn't really matter. It was not significant enough to stress over, was my interpretation. And John, you can say your interpretation as well. When we got to the amount of years, it was interesting that they ultimately all landed on 9 years is fine. A couple felt that they liked the 6-year, being able to renew it. One person in particular, because they felt that the amount of money would not be relevant after 6 years, that money would be too tight. There was a member who felt that 15 years would be totally reasonable, and that this person was supportive of going to 15 years, and we should go to 15 years. And really what we heard was that it's a highly valued level and type of service that this community appreciates. And so the conclusion from the group was that 9 years at 700 or 750 would be the way to go, and they did not have a strong opinion about either one amount. Is there anything else about the bag?
That's right. Pretty correct.
Right, so I think that today what we're looking at is the ballot questions, 1A for 700, 1B for 750,000. And just to bring you back to those, you'll see that we highlighted in yellow what we changed from the 2011 ballot question. At the A1, or 1A, whatever.
A1 and A2.
One
A1,
and A2.
A1, A2, thank you.
I kept looking for an A and a B in there.
A1. Attachment A1 is for 700,000. The amount, the 3,029,000, is rounded down, and the treasurer suggests that we can either round it down or have it be the real amount. He thinks it doesn't matter. So the amount that we're looking to generate is 3,029,189. And so that's the second highlight. We actually asked the question in such a way that it's for 9 years, but it actually reads as 8 years from the first year that it is in existence. And then the priorities that we just reviewed are there. A couple are exactly the same as 2011. And this is how the question would read. The second, A2, is the exact same thing, only at 750, generating the 3,079,189. So we didn't round down on that one, and it's insignificant according to the treasurer. Still for 8 years, and the rest is exactly the same. So the first choice point is your comfort with the amount of money that we generate.
Okay, Rachel.
Again, as I looked at it, reading the memo, it just seemed like a bit of oversight that the deduction for treasury fees weren't there, and asking for the 750 as an increase and renewal of the base amount is very reasonable, and that's how I would choose to proceed. I also support the 8 years, not 9, as you're asking. And I would just kind of point out, 6 years seems like yesterday that we were doing this. And it leaves a lot of kind of insecurity, perhaps, with some of the programs and missions that groups are trying to perform. And so I think that the longer term makes sense. I also think that, pardon me, 6 years is barely 1.5 terms of the commission, and it just, nobody gets elected for a 2-year term, and so it makes more sense to me to go for an 8-year because it would be 2 full terms. And it's a chance for a board to be able to see the benefit and the investment going forward rather than, kind of right in the middle of things.
Thank you, Rachel. It was my oversight, so I own that. I forgot about the treasurer's fees.
We've seen more than one agency do this before, Nan,
Whoops.
so
It was a whoopsie on my part. The other thing about it is 9 years, so even though it is 2019 plus 8 years is how the question reads. And I forgot that the Financial Advisory Board asked about the 9 years, and we're completely satisfied with the concept of financial security for the agencies, and that 6 years is just not enough time to provide enough financial security for these agencies, many of whom have long proven track records, who are longtime partners.
And they may well be pursuing multi-year state grants or other grants from other agencies.
It makes a big difference.
I just wanted to underscore that, if I could, when we're talking about mental health care, prevention measures are in multiple year, objectives, right? So we're thinking of 3 to 5 year programs for prevention. So it's barely up and rolling after a few years. So I think I would support a 9-year as well.
And the amount, do you have a?
I'm leaning toward the 750. I think if our financial advisory board is so, they seem to be very enthusiastic about that and laying it out. I'll go with that, with their recommendation.
Steve, do you have comments, please?
Yeah, I'm good with having the 750,000. If we we're just paying the treasurer's fee, that would be eating into the money we needed for the amounts that we really need to adequately fund the programs. I do have questions about the percentages. I don't know if we want to talk about that
We
right
should,
at this moment, or
we should probably talk about that since we're,
whenever we talk about that. I'd like to give some ideas on that.
Sure, do you want to sort of settle the
No,
amount
go ahead,
in
Steve,
years?
if
or-
you have questions
All
about
right,
the
So-
let me get back to the.
So if
little
you go
slide.
back to that slide that shows the percentages, the funding needed for core public health and senior services, both are underfunded on the $750,000 model. So how do you come up with the funding needed column, those figures there?
The
Is that
funding-
an
that's a good
estimate, or is that
question.
like a hard?
No, it's a good question. The funding needed came from the July 24th memo, as we were sorting out what is and what is anticipated to be. And so from July 24th to now, we've completed our budgets, and we've, and we've gotten input from Connie and from the treasurer and from finance. And I think, do you want to talk about what it's like for you to look at maybe generating less than what we said you needed?
Sure. So, in regard to the core public health services and the mandated services from the state, we looked at both what we anticipate needing for 2019, but we also did our 5-year projection and really trying to evaluate what to anticipate in the next 5 years. And as Rachel alluded to, a lot of our funding comes down from the feds and through the state, and we've seen a gradual chipping away at that funding. So we have this funding need that we've identified based on current funding need and recognizing that we may have some gaps in the future. We also, though, anticipate that if we have a gap like this, that we could look at other external funding sources to help support some of our programs. It's hard to find core public health funding, but it's easier to find some of the funding that goes toward addressing our public health improvement plan priorities. So we can look at philanthropic funding to help support some of our initiatives. So we have both a gap, and we also have opportunity to look at other funding sources. So we want to recognize both of those things moving forward. Does that answer your question, Steve?
Well, yeah, but if we end up being short for what they need, and that core public health and senior services both, and
So-
yet we're greatly increasing the other ones, will we have flexibility in the percentages
You
to
totally have
bump
flexibility.
up the amount that the public health and the senior services getting and cut down a little bit one of the others?
So we're currently generating about 24,000 for the Healthy Community Fund accountability management. A full 5% would get us 149. We don't need that, right? So I tried to last night make this chart, but I didn't have the right symbol for, less than or equal to 5%. So you have some room in that 5% as well. Public health is going to be growing, and the fund grows with growth and inflation. So we believe that this is your best starting place, and then you can adjust.
and that's written in, that the Healthy Community Fund can reevaluate as time goes on.
Right, and the Grant Review Committee can weigh in based on where the demands are. As well, the general fund does support public health and senior services on some level with some things, and you all have the ability to use general fund dollars if there's a gap, and we can make it up the next year through the fund. The fund also has had a fund balance, a small one, and we use it for one-time requests or new programs. And so while we try to spend, or we have the opportunity to spend all of it, as we don't, we can bail out if there's a shortfall or a lost grant or something.
Okay.
George, did you have any input here?
It's sort of a question with your last statement, Nan. So we've had a fund balance in the past, and we've utilized that sometimes for emergencies or really needed requests. So we don't actually allocate, we basically utilize all the dollars that come in for the most part. So we don't we don't set aside any fund balance in general.
We have to set money aside for Tabor, and we have every time we go into a grant review committee, we try to make sure that we have about 50,000 in as a prudent reserve. And sometimes we've dipped into that, and sometimes we haven't. And the carryover generally has been more revenue than we anticipated, and we use that money to significantly donate to the mental health RFP, for example. And we've started nonprofits. We started the Aspen Family Connections with those dollars. So having the one-time dollars has helped, but we do not strive to save money or not spend it. It is really our mission to get these dollars out to the agencies that need them.
Is this the first year that we've had the Financial Advisory Board look at this?
They've always looked at it.
They always have, okay.
And they actually requested, I ran into one of the members who said,
Yeah.
we really want to be involved in something, and I reminded him that this was coming up, and this was their opportunity to really get together and help us with some recommendations. So it was nice of them, and we thanked them for their service.
Yeah, so I'm comfortable with the Financial Advisory Board's recommendations. The change, as they noted, is very, very small, the differences, but it allows us to expand and cover more of the services that I think the community is looking for and needs. And I think the term is good, the 9 years. I think we talked about that previously.
So I have a question on timing again. Tomorrow we have first reading, correct? When is second read?
The 22nd.
Okay, I'm comfortable in moving the ballot question A2 forward, but I really want to hear from the public on the 22nd. I think this is important because this is a public fund for public services, and I'm hoping that if any members of the public would come forward to support or to give us their opinions or some suggestions, that will be of interest at the public hearing on the 22nd.
Great. So we will move forward A2, and that brings us to the resolution that approves the ballot question. So we're a little bit going backwards, but in your packet is a resolution. It's funny how that does that. All right, there we go. It looks like this, and it's highlighted in yellow as well because we basically cut and paste from the 2011 resolution. So what you're going to see is the election is on November 6th. That's the first change, 2018. And then the first, number 1, that is new required language for resolutions that the clerk has changed. So that's just standard language. As you go down, again, you see the date, November 6th. The resolution talks about the articles in the statute about Tabor. If you go down to number 6, the way that this used to read in 2011 was that the fund had been in existence since 2002. So now we have 16 years of proven track record. The 55,000 that you see in number 7, the number of people that are being served by these agencies has increased dramatically from our best guess at about 25,000. And remember, those are duplicated visits, but it also includes a lot of singular visits to mental health, to the health center, to the larger sets of programs that we support, ACEs, and other programs. It doesn't include all the people who are on the radio, the television, who we're also supporting and serving. And then you get to page 2, number 8. That is required language now in resolutions, that you all find it's in the best interest of citizens to approve the resolution. The now therefore language is required. So in bold is the title of the ballot question in the resolution. A lot of this was just cleanup, but I just want you to, be aware of what we changed. the date of the election, and then we get down in the now therefores. In number 2A, it talks about the collection of the fund it's dedicated. You can't be spending it for anything else other than this fund. It doesn't guarantee a specific level of funding to any agency, and it has always said that the general fund will cover capital expenses for the senior center, and most of the cost of administering the Healthy Community Fund. So while we can generate up to 5%, it doesn't pay for Mitzi's time, it doesn't pay for my time. It's really about just some basic clerical support, as well all of the work that we do to make sure that the agencies are viable, and accountability.
Again, on this one, would you just, senior capital expenditures, are there junior capital expenditures?
You know,
It's a new
I
one
think
for me, just not capital expenditures.
I think what I was thinking was senior services. So
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I need a word in there.
A word.
I think the anticipation is if there's an opportunity to, for the Healthy Community Fund to participate potentially in new senior center funding.
Okay,
So
so
it's
that-
not senior, it's for senior center.
So we just need to
Is that
cover
what
them
you're
like-
anticipating?
No, it's
there?
really, there are some repair and replacements we do
Oh,
at the
okay.
senior center that this county has always taken on.
So it should be senior
Chairs,
services
kitchen,
capital expenditures.
Senior
Yeah.
services, I will change it,
Services
Mhm.
capital.
Mark that
Thank
too.
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
right? Thank you. And the BOCC may appropriate funding from the general fund for senior services and public health as needed. So you're, you know.
Leaving that door open.
That's right, leaving that door open because it's always been part of the plan. And then again, that it's up to your discretion if you want to spend up to 5% on the fund coordination. But then in 2C, we outline the goals that you all approved on the 4th of July. I mean, the 24th of July. We were very busy on the 4th of July doing something else. So you all requested the combining of cultural treasures of environmental quality. So that's the language that you approved on the 24th. In D, we made one little change, and that is, or a couple of little changes. We hope for 5 members, adult members of the Citizen Grant Review Committee. We have ended up with 4 at times because of turnover, people moving. So we just wanted to give a little bit of room there for 4 to 5 appointments as adults, and then up to 2 youth members. We have been really successful having youth
I know, that's
members,
great.
but we didn't have that in the language before. So we wanted to add that. And the other thing that's different is in 2011, the resolution required that Citizen Grant Review Committee members not be on any other board of agencies that receive or request funding. And we just found that nowadays that's almost impossible to find. And so we would recommend language that they are willing to recuse themselves on the basis of conflict of interest if they're sitting on a board of directors of any agency applying for money. Of course, if you sit on a board of directors, you have fiduciary obligations. And so we currently have asked people to step out of the room. So that's just a simple cleanup.
Let me jump in for a comment there. I think there may be a little wording necessary because it's not just the conflict of interest potentially with their own agency, but if there end up being agencies that are a little bit in conflict with each other. Well, if we grant these guys 20,000, there'll be less left for my agency. So although I'm going to step out of the room when my agency is reviewed, they're weighing in on the funding for a similar or somewhat competing agency.
So if we just said on the basis of conflict of interest and that we have
Period.
policies and take out the rest of it,
Oh,
would you
that's
be
good.
comfortable
Yeah, I
with
think that would do it, because that's basic conflict of interest would be sitting on your own board or a board that you're in conflict with.
And just simplify the language.
Okay.
It simplifies it.
We
Okay.
will simplify that language. Thank you. Good eye.
Dead.
Okay.
We're sharing a bed.
conflict of interest, and then we'll just say, and shall
Period.
serve without pay,
Right.
right? And then the next one is Mitzi and I have a disagreement about whether it's insure or insure, so it could be I, it could be
Well,
E.
it could be either.
It's not a big deal.
Insure is what you drink from the grocery store.
Are you insuring or are you
I think
insuring?
It's the word is,
I think it's ensure.
E.
I think it
That's
is
what-
a,
That's
yeah.
what I thought it was
With an
too.
EN?
Conflict.
It was I in 2011,
Yeah,
so we.
Ian's correct.
Ian.
We just took a quick.
Very good. All right. So then we get to 4, E4, which talks about your ability to make distributions that are responsive to current changing needs and that also demonstrate accountability by measuring programmatic impact, which is what staff is, that's our mission. The Grant Review Committee evaluates all the grants and makes recommendations. Highest priority, as I said, goes to the agencies providing basic health and human needs that are in the listed in the ballot question. Other funding is allocated based on availability, and this outlines the initial percentages, and there's an error there, and it should say 12% for community nonprofits.
We missed that.
So I have a question.
Yep.
Under public health, core public health services are defined, and what about the word "and mandated"? Because that's a big thing we're facing, I think, with public health. Is the reason we created our new public health department is because we were mandated to create it.
You
So
want us
my
to
thinking was to
change-
say as defined and mandated in the 2008 Public Health
Sure.
Act.
We can change that.
Can we just say mandated?
Yeah.
Instead of defined at all.
Well, you guys pick one or the other or
Let's
both.
choose, but good point.
Yeah,
I like as mandated.
Mandated? Okay.
yeah, because I think that's got more strength to, because people are wondering, why did you just create a Department of Public Health? Well,
Yeah.
because we were kind of told we had to do so.
Yeah.
And we were mandated,
true.
and there's certain provisions within that were mandated, therefore the need for us to create the new wonderful Public Health Department.
Right.
Steve, did you have a?
Yeah, I just noticed that you still have health and human services linked together on the 46%. And you have the core public health services on the 22%. Are there still health agencies
there are.
associated with the human services?
Yes, there are. So we have lots of health partners who are not part of core public health, like Mountain Family Health Center, like the school-based resource centers, and Planned Parenthood. Community health services provide services that are not core public health services. So you're right, we still have those linked together, but they're actually literal here. Human services are broader category services, health services are primary preventative. And
So is our new Department of Public Health all under the core public health services
yes.
Yes.
entirely?
Yes.
Okay.
That's true.
Do you think there should be another word for?
Well, no,
Other
to me,
health
I
or-
mean, if I was a little confused, the
Yeah.
public definitely will be when,
Yeah.
well, they're not gonna see this on the ballot question, but,
Sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure to clarify that in my mind anyhow.
Rachel?
Well, two things. One is that back on that 2008 Public Health Act, I think we should add the word Colorado, 2008 Public Health Act, so we know where that comes from. And then on Steve's question, perhaps the other health and human service agencies are nonprofits.
Yes.
So we could add the definition in there that they are to nonprofit health and human service
nonprofit.
agencies.
Okay.
And I don't
Just
know if,
differentiate.
yeah, that the other will
Yes.
be for the, through the county. The first one
good.
is,
Great.
so the first one's county, the other's nonprofit. And I don't know if it'd be reasonable to say,
It's not all county because it goes to a vendor as well. To the
Okay.
vendor providing the nursing services, the core public
right,
health.
right.
So if we could keep core public health and then nonprofit
Profit,
health and human services agencies, I
good.
think that's really specific.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
Okay,
Okay, and just wanted to remind you all in that section that the Citizen Grant Review Committee is encouraged to recommend, and the BOCC can make adjustments to these percentages based on changing needs. So this is just a starting place. Those are the main changes. The rest of the language, I hope, is still statutorily required. I don't know.
We will have that
I hope
reviewed to
so.
be sure.
The attorney
Jeanette.
still reviewing. Anyway, and the last page is all just new format for the resolutions. So,
So we will see this tomorrow for first reading, and then we will see in the clean version tomorrow. We may still have comments, and then we'll see the second on the 22nd. George, and then Greg, or
Sure, go ahead.
Nan, how are we able to prioritize where this shows up in a ballot? The last time it was ballot 1A, and how does that happen?
The structure of the ballot is by jurisdiction, so statewide questions will go first, county questions will go next, and then they're followed by municipalities and special districts. If this is the only county question, it'll follow whatever state questions are on the ballot.
And
where
as
did
far,
the candidates come in on there?
they're not.
Candidates before
Before
ballot
issues.
questions?
Oh, there before.
So wasn't this question 1A in the
Right.
past? And the,
And I believe it will be again. We'll double check with
I don't think we have
Janice,
anything else
but we,
forward.
Yeah.
you know, the statewide questions will definitely be on first.
yeah, they always are. And judges,
Yeah.
things like that.
Right.
I just had couple
Yeah,
more.
Greg, go ahead.
Is there anything in this new go-around 2018 that has anything been struck from the request, the way we've categorized? Has anything been struck out? Just to assure the public, if somebody had a favorite subject, I'd like them to know that we're not removing anything.
The biggest change that I think we saw and we considered was that we had two questions about children's services. One was the protection of children in 2011, and one was like the general support of children and families. And as we looked at it, and as the poll results came in, what we did was we added the protective and supportive services for children and their families in at-risk homes.
Right, we had a question that had youth at risk in it, that was
Yeah.
separate from
Protection.
children and families, so we thought it made sense to put the at-risk in the same statement, and you are covering children, youth, and families,
Right,
just the
okay.
same.
And as the percentages can change based on need and what we assess. Same with the, I know the question came up, Rachel brought it up earlier, just about the cultural treasures and environmental quality. They're all they've been bunched together, but the percentages could increase or decrease depending on the need. So
Right.
we shouldn't be concerned about that. I know that was an issue.
Yeah, and, in addition, from the poll results about the community's desire to really work towards more environmental concerns, as we discussed, we are working with CORE, who's here for our next presentation. We have the Healthy Community Fund, Healthy River and Stream Fund granting. I don't think our Open Space and Trails Fund grants in that same classic sense, but certainly partnerships with a lot of other agencies. So it's not necessarily fully covered only in this fund.
Right, right.
The one other thing that's amended from 2011, it was really that we were a little more specific about preventative health, immunizations, women's health. And in this ballot question, we've broadened it to sort of include all health. So it wasn't eliminated, it was just integrated.
Great, thank you.
So Nan, is there any other direction you need from the board?
No, I think we will come in with hand copies tomorrow for first reading. And I think we have all the direction that we need, and really appreciate all your attention. This is great. We're
So we
moving.
will see you here again tomorrow in our new meeting room in the new Pickens County
And
Administration.
what a pleasure to be the first. How awesome is that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
thank
it is
you.
wonderful. Yeah,
Thank you.
Rachel?
Oh, I was just going to say, I wanted to add that this building was built using certificates of participation. It required no increase in taxes to the voters. And so that's a really important detail for getting a $23 million building accomplished. And we're able to then pour more of our revenue into great services like you guys offer.
Steve, did you want to make a comment?
with our new setup here, I feel like we are all at the same table here.
This is great.
Yeah.
The first time, and before you, the presenters were kind of removed from us, and we had the gap.
Nice. And it felt like you were paying attention to us, but I realized you were
I know.
watching.
We're looking at your knees.
Paying attention to you, Nan.
know that was
Now,
there.
the public
That's the
needs to
screen.
know that a genius idea that came from staff was to put a television screen monitor right here in
There,
front.
so you could
So that
watch.
so we don't have to be turning our heads or turning around or
We're
looking at
watching
this side of the room.
QVC, though.
Yeah.
No,
We're watching Cat Ballou or one of those.
This
movies
does feel
that
more
we used to
together,
watch.
and there's no more post from the old building.
Yeah, it says it's-
Yeah, there is that.
it's nice to have a clock too, so we can stay on time.
Oh,
So
I didn't
thank
even-
you very much.
Yes, thank you. And you guys did great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next coming before us is CORE regarding funding for the RUMP Fund. Are we waiting for Cindy Hubin? Is she going to join us?
Let me text Cindy.
We're 5 minutes early, but I think, should we,
She doesn't have to run over from City Hall.
yeah, she just has to come from upstairs now. That's right. So Mona, let's go ahead and get started since we're just only 5 minutes ahead of schedule and we can keep moving. And welcome.
Thank you very
Welcome to our new building, our new energy efficient building.
Yeah. Beautiful. I think our first question or maybe apology is that we'd like to present a slightly different slideshow than I submitted in your packet. So,
Mona, that's okay.
I was trying to get on. I know you don't like changes, but we want to just try to do that. But, so anyway, let's see if we're going to get hooked up.
Start at the beginning. Page over here.
Can you see it?
No, it says laptop, no signal. Is it on, question mark? John?
We'll need the
Yeah,
5 minutes.
ours
This is
is.
good.
Is it hot swappable? Is it hot swappable? That's the question. If you unplug and plug in, does it?
Should be.
See, she just had to come from upstairs.
I know, I was printing the packet and then I thought, no, I'm not going to. I was going to
I'm gonna
text you.
take a fingerful of,
It's not.
It's good. The frost is actually.
Maybe I'll use that HDMI.
Oh, it's wonderful.
adapter.
Just trying to. This is so cool. Okay, it's not really PowerPoint. That's probably.
I like that we can all watch television while they're presenting.
I'm just getting used to this space. It's really lovely.
isn't it a beautiful room? Blue stained wood. And the border, the trim, the inlay and the table.
The lady who made the table was here.
I saw
earlier.
her.
Did you meet her?
Had a chance to meet her, yeah.
Was she the one with the kids?
She flew in to
No, she came in from
make sure it was all
Kansas.
good.
Just the,
She had thumb drive.
Barb Young from Triad,
the thumb drive in there.
Nebraska,
Yeah, sorry about that.
Kansas.
Kansas.
To be working.
Our first meeting room disaster.
Tech challenges.
Call the tech people.
Yep.
Where's AV when you need them?
She was here.
Yeah, I was thinking that
It's all
it was
right.
when you unplug.
John,
and
do we
plug
need
back
to take a
in.
class.
We need to take a break. Should we take a break? Grassroots, we're gonna take 10 minutes, please.
Up, it's up.
Wait, no, we're not.
You don't need 10 minutes.
Cancel that break.
Cancel that.
I should have practiced and come here. I know. That's oh, sorry.
Okay,
Oh,
so is
look
it,
at this. Oh, how exciting.
yeah, and we
all
can
right.
see it right here in front of us.
Great.
Oh, my goodness.
Did they have a screen
Right
down
there.
there? Was that your ideas?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, if we're
I
not
wish it
looking you in
was.
the eyes, don't make any assumptions. We're looking at the
Right.
monitor.
Okay, well, let me start all over here and just say thank you for allowing us to come in and for giving us this amount of time to talk a little bit about CORE and our request for the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program funds. So I'm going to take the time to just give you an update on what CORE has been up to, what our direction is, and then Marty's going to support me in that as well. So
And
this.
introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm Mona Newton. I'm the executive director of CORE.
And I'm Marty Treadway. I'm the program director.
And I'm Cindy Hubin. I'm the Community Development Director, and along with George, I'm on the Board of CORE representing Pitkin County.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. So this is what we are promoting. CORE has been around for almost 25 years. And what we are really trying to do is share our story with the public and engage the public as much as we can in our projects and our programs. So we've added this tagline, we help you save energy. So let's see now. Of course, I don't know how to use this fancy new Dell computer,
It's
so we'll
working
just,
page down, maybe.
oh, I am paging down, but
It's
anyway,
scrolling, but that's okay.
Just scrolling down slowly.
I know.
That's okay.
Guess you
So-
know that.
This is our core team, and we're fortunate in that we have longevity with our group. We have a lot of technical capabilities within our organization. We have Marty is a certified energy manager. We have building professional industry certified folks on our team who manage the core commercial program and the residential program. So we have a good breadth of.
And you all have weapons.
We all have weapons. Actually, that is a picture of us last year. I know Trish has a weapon there. We were working on the Prince Creek Trail. It was one of our volunteer activities, so we took a group photo there. One of the aspects, or one of the, I don't want to say things, but one of our focuses this year with the direction of the core board has been to really look at larger programs, larger projects. How can we do more? We had set a goal of 100% renewable energy, and with for Holy Cross Energy, and with Brian Hannigan on board, it makes it less so important for us to be pushing Holy Cross, but really supporting Holy Cross in their efforts to move forward. And so just some of the highlights this year is, we talked about finding space for the 5 megawatt solar project a couple of years ago, which Steve helped point out, and we helped help the company who has won the bid to build the project that will come before you, hopefully this fall. September 4th. We help them, get their foothold into the county by helping them identify the land and that kind of thing. And we've already been talking to communities and about potentially buying some of that energy that's going to come off that project, hopefully by 2019, if all goes well. In 2017, we exceeded our renewable energy rebate. So again, we're helping to put more clean energy on the grid. In 2017, our grants awarded 740 kilowatts of renewable energy. Most recently, with John's support and George's support and Cindy's support, we've been working with the Basalt Vista Habitat project. As you probably know, that looks like it's going to be a net zero, 27 units of net zero affordable housing, which is super exciting, really. It's probably the first habitat project that's going to be net zero, and could be the first net zero project in Pitkin County anyway. So and multifamily unit especially. We've done a few sort of close to net zero single family units, but this is really a public affordable housing project. And then what we try to do is sort of keep our eyes out for what might be happening, talking to people, meeting with folks from the communities so that we can help support their projects. And then one of the efforts that we started engaging in a couple years ago was climate action. We started out with emissions inventories for all of the communities except Aspen, because they've already done theirs. And then now we're looking at regional climate action. We held our first meeting several weeks ago, and we talked about what kind of projects can we work together on. And that region includes Pitkin County and the city of Aspen, town of Basalt, and Snowmass Village as well.
And could I jump in there? The board is the one who, or the group that directed us to act in that direction, to get everyone together and start talking regionally. And CORE has taken that on as the facilitator and project managers of that. So,
yeah, it's pretty exciting. And then, as you know, we offer net zero homes incentives. And then one of the other areas that we focus on is building code adoption. So I think we can probably by the end of September, we will be able to proudly say that every community from Carbondale to Aspen will have adopted the 2015 IECC, which you know, it may not sound much, but actually it really is, because.
Which is the International Energy
Conservation Code.
Code.
Yes, very good, thank you. So,
And just to add to that, tonight, we're meeting with P&Z on some additional recommendations for the addendum to the Energy Code that will be coming forward to you September 11th.
so just to take a quick note of this slide, in 2016, you can see that primarily Aspen had an emissions inventory and reduction targets, and there were some others in the community. Carbondale had one, Glenwood Springs has an energy reduction target, and then the Snowmass Village had a reduction target. And we didn't have emissions inventories throughout the valley, or updated ones, and we didn't have climate action plans. So Sarah Gruen, who is our community sustainability manager, has really been focusing her efforts on working with communities, and you can see that now we have emissions inventories throughout the valley, we have them throughout the Roaring Fork Valley, and we have targets. We have more targets than we, then everybody has targets, and they're very similar, and we have action plans, and we're using those action plans then to help us coordinate this regional climate action we're doing.
Explain your color coding again for us.
Yeah, trying to.
Green means go.
It's done.
Done. Well, in progress. Nothing's done yet until we can say, we've stopped climate change here. But red is they're not adopted yet. So, or they're, So, and yellow is it's in the process. So.
Steve has a question.
So I see that Picken County is one of the red ones there, that we don't have a reduction target at this point. Is that something that we have in the works?
Yeah.
Coming up with a number?
Yeah, I can at least start out addressing that. When we came to you with our climate action plan, which is a little different than a lot of plans, because really they're work programs within each of our departments. So it's more Picken County focused. And then the other approach is to go out regionally and work with the groups, on Picken County itself. But the Picken County organization and working on climate change itself, we didn't fall on any particular target at that time when we adopted the first round of the climate action plan. Doesn't mean that when we come back to you this year that you're not going to say we want a target. We just felt at that time that we really didn't know what we should be asking for, so we didn't want to just make it up. And we had talked about going with some national standards or international standards or what other communities were doing, but we just didn't land on one for that first round of our climate action plan.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of other things, as you know, going on. We're meeting with planning and zoning and looking at REMP and looking at how TDRs, and so there's a lot of things in the work that kind of maybe don't, as Cindy was just saying, don't really lend itself for like a goal specifically, but we're kind of chipping away at a lot of different things. So the other piece that's not on those, on our chart, is that all the communities are part of CC4CA, and they're also part of the Colorado Compact, or Colorado Community Compact. So anyway, which is great progress, because our goal is to, keep everybody moving forward and paying attention, so.
Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you. And, it's just a vague recollection here, but it seemed to me that when Dylan was working with us as an energy manager and the broader movement was heating up, we may have passed a resolution or joined some other national climate efforts that had targets in them. Mm-hmm. And so I think we may have set some targets that way, but it's always been a little challenge. Are we setting them for the county as an organization, as a business, or are we setting them for the county and the community as a whole? And those are two very different items, right. But we are moving forward as a county trying to continue to reduce our impact.
Yes, and the departments have a lot of work planned in their work plan.
Well, that's what I think is key for how the county approaches, is we wanted to give people things they could attain, not this goal that, not that it's a bad thing to have a goal set out 2020, 2030, 2050, but we wanted to bring, I think, my opinion, my belief, is that we brought the county departments in, is this is what we can accomplish, the little increments that lead up, and then show the community what can be done, starting small, working your way up to actually make a difference. And I think that was really the key and the philosophy behind our plan.
Right, and it's up to us to bring that back to you on an annual basis so you can see the progress made
Right.
in each one of the departments towards the goal. And also during budget season, I hope you'll be alerted and watching for what people are asking for if anybody is trying to get some of those projects done within their
Perfect.
departments.
Right.
Yeah, Greg?
I know you've been reaching out and doing a great job of it. I think that there's still, in our community, there's some lack of understanding in what a term like net zero means. And I would love to see an initiative aimed at educating, maybe in the schools, back the kids, the middle schoolers or high schoolers, so everyone really has a grip on what net zero means and how attainable is it, if it's attainable, because there's big question marks and there's even fear. When you talk about net zero, it just sounds too scary to some people. While we're demonstrating that it can work, it's so exciting to see a subsidized housing project going toward net zero. That was a shock and a really pleasant surprise when I saw that coming forward. So congratulations. But I would love to see a real education effort that could start here and maybe spread beyond our borders, so people really understand that it's what it is and how important it is. It's an existential question for us, I think, and that it's doable. I think that's a great message, and I applaud everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is a front page. We just redid our website. Again, it says we help you save energy, and we want you to reach out to us. That's part of our effort. Thank you for teeing this up for us, Greg, because what we're really trying to do is reach out to the community and engage everybody and remind them that they can do something, that they can be part of our efforts and that they are powerful. We provide all types of education and outreach. We did the Changemakers Challenge this year where we worked with high schools and we brought in Shutet Scott Martinez. Some of you may have heard of him. It's Martinez versus Colorado right now. He's seeing the COGC for not being an enforcement body but just an approval body. And he's 17 years old. He's really quite amazing, and it was very exciting to see how he motivated high school students, adults, kids. It was very cool. And then we have our Energy Innovation Series where we tried to educate the public. We took advantage of the tiny home that the SKICO had in the Buttermilk parking lot last year, and now we're working with SKICO to make those tiny homes net zero. That's part of some of the work Marty's doing, and we're just moving forward with that. We held a really great seminar this past year. I think, Greg, you were there at the Buildings for a Sustainable Future, reaching out to contractors and architects. I think, Steve, you might have been there as well. I can't recall, where we brought in a national speaker, Ed Mazria. He came in and he was talking about net zero, and yes, he talked about it in a way that, within buildings, because buildings are 70% of carbon emissions in our region, that we can get to net zero. Now, we have to also focus on the transportation industry, but if we can focus on buildings, that's very attainable. And then we had our Fire in the Belly series, again, reaching out to the community. It was a great storytelling event, really powerful stories from people who've made changes. And as it turned out, some of them had the support of CORE in order to make their changes. So Marty's going to tell you a little bit about our programs. So.
Yeah, so hello again. I'm Marty with CORE, Program Director. Thanks for having us. And what a great opportunity to really sort of dig deep and spend a little bit of time on some of this work that we love so much. So just starting with the, I guess, residential, well, maybe just dovetailing off of the last slide here, that event we had with Ed was really sort of laid out a template for us. It really, in energy efficiency, I think especially in residential, there's so many ways you can go, so many things you can do to your home, as Greg, you'll know. The challenge, or one of the challenges of many, is to sort of stay focused. What's the most important work here, and what are the opportunities that are cost effective and make sense for your home? And it's different for every homeowner, and so part of what CORE tries to do is help direct that. But what Ed really painted was a picture of adopt stringent codes and follow them, and then add your renewables. There's nothing heroic there. There doesn't need to be any scary brain damage on retrofitting complex systems that are still fully functional. I think the takeaway for me from that event was, we're beyond rocket science. Now we need to implement what we already know how to do. And I think CORE's programs help people do that. They help remove these cost barriers and any knowledge barriers that might exist. So anyway, getting on to residential, we see this as a foundation of our programs. In a sort of circular way, it's a way to access our commercial programs and our grant programs. These business owners in the valley are homeowners and county commissioners. And so I feel like our residential program is that baseline that's a way to access energy efficiency on a level that most people understand, which is their homes. And so it really does build this foundation of a culture of efficiency that we're trying to nudge people toward. So the redesign of the website, this engaging people with events like Fire in the Belly, it's meant to get you excited about doing this one action. And this one action gets you sort of paying attention to energy efficiency, or, oh, my actions matter, and it's a journey. It's not just, I did a new fridge, and so now I'm done. So this builds community buy-in. One of the primary ways we do this is through our home energy assessment program. This is a program that supports the local workforce. CORE doesn't go out into your home and do these assessments. We help fund a market that is an energy efficiency market for these guys, that we help keep their training intact. We support them with every 3 years they have to recertify their BPI trainings. But really is workforce development. We'll get some slides that show some money that's actually spent in the community and stays in the community. So these assessments are intended to give you the broad sort of upgrade potential in your home and give you some steps to go forward if you're interested in upgrading. So anyway, it's a great driver, even though it's tough sometimes to justify the expense. What did you do? You walked through my home, you gave me a report. Well, that report is just the physical deliverable. It's the educational piece, it's the engagement piece that we value so much with those homeowners who are also small business owners, et cetera. So
This is where your slides change a little bit. We clarified the graphs a little bit.
I kind of like the one with all the colors.
I like this better.
Right. Do you more detail?
The blue line's going up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we're trying to sort of demonstrate here, just with a little more clarity, I think your original slide had breakdowns by community, which could really be a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to focus on, what are we spending on assessments and what are we getting in carbon savings? And the carbon numbers are very small, again, for assessments. We're not retrofitting your home. We're going in and we're maybe screwing in some light bulbs. We're installing a shower head. These are drops in the ocean, but again, maybe we've improved the lighting in your kitchen and it gets you more excited to think about the bigger projects. So the dollars that are spent on this program, these are in its entirety, fiscal year to fiscal year. You'll see a big spike in 2016 on many of these slides as we partnered with the city of Aspen and the local utilities on the Aspen Energy Challenge, if you recall that partnership with Georgetown University. They had an energy prize, and so that 15-16 spike is really that program where we're giving away assessments for free. That's why you see we spent so much that year, et cetera. So, but an interesting thing here for me anyway is that our carbon savings is pretty consistent. Consistently tied with our expenses here. And again, we're not saving the world with carbon here, but this is our public engagement piece. So
What happened with that competition? I don't know if I ever heard the winner.
Patty,
You didn't hear the word? It was changed to a loan program. that
Bait and switch.
It was a real bait and switch. And what they announced after Aspen being the second place for quite some time was that in the final run, the city of Aspen wasn't even in the running in the final tier, and that the program had become a loan program instead of a $5 million award. So a lot of communities, it just really fell apart, and lost so much
Started off
credibility.
great and then
But in
changed
the
course.
meantime, we did some good things. We, the core board authorized through the Board of County Commissioners and City Council to spend $500,000 on upgrades to affordable housing in Aspen and Pickens County. So I think it's a 17% increase in energy efficiency in hundreds of units. So I think that in itself got us off the dime, but the project was pretty disappointing.
Well, because we thought we were gonna get $5 million at the end, so what was
Right.
500,000 at the beginning?
Oh, well.
Right. Well, and many communities actually that were part of the competition made some very bold policy. They adopted some very bold policies. Park City, Utah was going to 100% electricity, and they've also bought electric buses. They put them on order. So a lot of good, as Cindy pointed out, really came out of it. It's unfortunate. I think Georgetown lost a lot of credibility with that.
Yeah.
And a lot of money was directly invested in the community by the communities. So there's a lot of good from it, but it was one of those.
I kind of wondered why I never really heard about the end result, so it's probably
Yeah,
why.
it's nothing to brag about.
Change in plan.
Except that we really did save a lot of carbon.
Except for that we did good stuff.
Yeah.
Like Greg has,
I just wanted to ask about your chart. You've got up here residential rebates for 2018. Is this what's been, just looking at the empty box there versus what's filled in green? And where we are in this time of year, are you expecting that to fill up by the end of the season? I'm trying to understand what that means.
Right, we're halfway
Yes.
through the year. Why is the solid so low?
Yeah.
We typically see, I won't put a number to it, but the bulk of our rebates happen in the fall.
Okay.
This year, a lot of work is being done now, but they won't make application maybe until fall. So starting now and in through really, November, we'll really see an increase. And solar rebates are included in this overall number, this total rebate number. So that's basically our rebate budget for this year, and we hope to hit it. So.
Yeah, if all of what we ask people to do is reserve funds when you're going to install a PV system, if all of the projects that have already been reserved at the end of July get installed, we'll max our budget out by the end of this year for sure. So it's pretty likely we're going to hit
You
this.
hit that.
Yeah, and I think, if you just hang on for that 1 second, I think the word that I wanted to convey here is consistency, and the chart doesn't look very consistent, but the truth of the matter is this residential rebate program of CORES has been going for, many years now, and I mean, the PV rebate's been around since, 2001, I think, so.
Yeah, Randy, yeah.
Consistency, to me, means accessibility and availability of the rebate program. We don't take PV rebates away. If we run out of PV money, we try and backfill with residential efficiency money. So even though the budget doesn't look super consistent there, the uptake has been growing fairly steadily. And in the last, like I say, that 2017 dip is really not a dip. It's been part of steady growth over the long term for us. And the key, I believe, is that core rebates are always available. We try to never say no. We try to find the money from somewhere in the budget to satisfy that customer. And I think that's a big facet of utility rebate programs that sometimes can be a hurdle for folks when they run out of money and you don't know it until you're applying. So anyway, next slide, income qualified. Hannah Itzler in that photo there is she started last year, came on board with CORE to manage our IQ program in partnership with Energy Outreach Colorado. and I believe we talked about this a little bit last year as well. Every year, our partnership with the EOC has just been growing, and they're asking more and more of us, which is amazing. I would say that this program has become, just so important to sort of core values, and I think the core board is really behind this notion too of supporting folks who are struggling with their utility bills and just trying to get by. So this has been a real leverage opportunity for us to take some core funding that we used to call the REACH funds, if you remember those days. And we now just call it our income qualified program. So we dedicate some funding, but it's matched 2 to almost 3 times now what Energy Outreach Colorado is kicking in. So it's really been an amazing partnership that continues to grow. The utilities in 2018 also dramatically increased their incentive levels on the pieces that really make a difference, like boilers and furnaces. Before, they would give you $300 for a $5,000 boiler, and we'd try and backfill with REACH funds, but we didn't have the funding to really help to that level. So now, there are multi-$1,000 rebates available for people who really are in trouble and need new heating equipment. So our challenge now is finding these folks. To be quite candid, it's been tough to get people to come out of the woodwork and apply for these programs. And so we're trying to reach them in new and creative ways through existing income qualified partners in the Valley. Valley settlements and those kinds of organizations. So right now our numbers aren't great for this year. I don't think we even have a slide on that, but we're certainly dedicated to moving this forward and trying to find folks to participate. So doing a lot of outreach on that front right now.
Rachel and then Steve.
Yeah, I would advise also looking into the USDA, as we are classified as a rural community. You may have already, but they do have some various programs as well, because it is always putting together a patchwork of programs, from whether it's senior assistance with heating costs or USDA. So we might find some there. And Sally Clark, who's the director for Colorado, is a former county commissioner from El Paso County, so she's very familiar with county concerns.
Oh, great. Oh, that's good to know.
She's a
In
good
fact, I just
contact
got the
for us.
announcement. I think a new announcement came out like this week or something. Yeah. So thank you for reminding us of that. And actually, we relied on the county a couple of years ago, the County Human Services Division, to help us with the furnace. John, you may remember that. And that's before we had the Energy Outreach Colorado partnership, where, somebody needed a furnace, and it was a situation. It was a dire situation. So the county had some emergency funds that we were able to tap into.
That's correct. Yeah.
That was cool. It was helpful.
And I was thinking
It's hot.
on the Basalt Vista project, having it be a net zero project for affordable housing, you could tie into that as a major publicity thing to show people how they could convert, upgrade their trailer home or whatever to make it really highly energy efficient and maybe produce some extra energy as part of the project and become more like the Basalt Vista project. They might not get the net zero, but you can help them get there. And if you use that, kind of launch a whole publicity thing based on the Basalt Vista project to get people really catch their attention and get them interested in
Absolutely.
applying
Yeah.
for
And
your
really,
other program.
That's exactly what we've just started. I just proofed a document this morning. So we are starting that process now. We're kind of seeing these 3 phases for Basalt Vista as far as our outreach goes. This sort of initial or pre-phase, getting the word out. And then the middle phase is all about sort of engaging people while it's under construction. And, it's a 2 to 3 year construction window. So there's lots of opportunities there for education. I just spoke with the Basalt principal at the high school this morning to try and talk about educational opportunities there. They're going to start a construction class. And so maybe there's a way for CORE to participate in that during the project. So
I have a question. Steve mentioned trailers. I thought that there were some limitations on improvements to trailers using grants and funds because I had heard that before when I had asked many years ago and was told it wouldn't qualify, my house wouldn't qualify because it was a trailer.
Things have changed. I mean, because
Gosh.
there's been so much work done. I mean, you would not believe what can be done to a trailer to make it more energy efficient.
I know what can be done. I was just told that I couldn't get assistance in doing it. And just so you know, I don't have to worry about radon because I have such great ventilation in my house.
Nature's
The other side of
ventilation.
it, right. If I could for a minute, I just
Yeah,
want
please.
to, my testimonial, Marty came to visit and looked at my property, my house. It's a 40-something-year-old house that, leaks over time. We ended up doing the mitigation on it, and then we put solar on. And I'm proud to say now my savings, I'm saving about 95% on my energy. My electric bill has gone down to, I think I'm at $9 or $10 a month now. And
Wow.
that's the fee Holy Cross charges.
Yeah.
It's a hookup fee. It's not even power. So the power at this point is it's down to nothing.
That's great.
And it's so exciting. So while you're imploring people to save energy, I look at it as well and say, save money. Why not? If you've got a house with a solar access roof and you can put solar on it, why wouldn't you have a zero utility bill? It just makes sense.
Right.
Absolutely.
And with the subsidies, it helps a lot.
It really does.
It really does. And this piece, it's been interesting to work with, jumping ahead a little bit, maybe just continuing on with Basalt Vista, since it is 27 individual homeowners that are going to be living there, we are taking this approach of 27 individual solar systems on each of those meters. They're each going to have an electric meter. So, that's about a $1,800 to $2,000 a year utility bill they just won't have. And there was a lot of conversation about the added expense of mortgage insurance, and Habitat's trying to help them buy down mortgage, and that wouldn't even be as much as this utility bill would have been annually. So it's really been exciting to hit that bottom line and with a real impact to say, hey, this is really going to help these teachers stay in these homes. So, all right, moving along. So commercial, similar to the residential, commercial programs at CORE, we kind of feel like are these, this is where we start getting it done on carbon savings. We're into annual metric tons, over 1,000 a year, so we're averaging up there in the 1,400 metric tons annually of savings. It's hard to know how to really present this information, if it should be in lifetime. Typically, we would do lifetime savings for projects like these, but I like to just report annual savings because it's consistent every year. You can see sort of how you're doing and see where your trends are. So again, fairly consistent. Our carbon savings is pretty closely tied to our budget. So the more work we do, the more carbon we save. There are some exceptional years. I'm trying to remember what 2015 spike was, but to Cindy's point, like when we do something like the APSHA work, sometimes those paths can diverge or converge as far as the dollar you spend to the metric tons of carbon you reduce. As you can probably appreciate, it can be complicated. Sometimes we support with a fairly small rebate a very large project. And one of the potential grants in this year's batch we'll get to will highlight that, I think. But fairly consistent, really, year over year. We have a note here, the low-hanging fruit is gone. I mean, that's yes and no, that's true. We've done a ton of lighting, everyone has. We really worked with the utilities on those lighting retrofits, but they're still out there, and there's still plenty of what I would call low-hanging fruit around air sealing and around simple measures that businesses don't typically think about air changes, and it gets complicated in Aspen when you have air curtains and businesses open in the middle of winter, but I think the point is there are still simple and effective things we could be pushing, and we're still trying to push. So that's one of, I guess, my points there is, on the one hand, we're trying to do more with less and be more impactful, but I think there's still, on the other hand, more just base work to be done.
If I could add to that. It seems as if the innovations in LED lighting are changing so dramatically. It seems to me in the last year, the quality of LED lighting has gotten to the point where it's indistinguishable now from tungsten. And was so much resistance to fluorescent LED from people who like that warm tungsten light. So, maybe we can surprise some of these people who haven't been paying attention that LEDs now can completely replace their tungsten lighting. And so I think you still have more there. I think you're right on about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially in commercial,
Right.
Aspen core sort of.
And even the fixtures that are very obvious to have filaments, they replace those with a good-looking LED filament.
Yep.
So keep on it. I'll help you.
Yep. Okay, I guess we still have, if we have time.
Just want to make sure we have time to discuss the grants.
That's right.
Okay, just real quickly, one of the ways we've tried to engage people on a little more meaningful level, we have a home energy assessment report that we've built and we maintain. We also now have a commercial assessment report, which maybe we can share next year some more details. We've done about 20 buildings with it. It's just a tool on your phone you can walk through and make some easy recommendations and connect people with rebates. So it's the early stages of trying to match what we do on the residential side. So.
All right, here we go.
Core grants. So these first couple slides are basically giving you an overview, excluding the big grant program, excluding the big UDOL grant program, which we'll get to in a moment. But the core grants, our goal over the last few years, like many of our programs, we're trying to figure out how to support larger work with less or the same amount of resources. So really going after those design assistance opportunities that are gonna pay back, right? A little less off in the clouds and a little more nuts and bolts. How do we get Hotel Colorado to replace their heating equipment with heat pumps, right? So the design assistance grant is a way to really tee up these larger UDOL grants, and it's not mandatory that you go through that process. Sometimes we will just advise you and you already sort of know what you want to do, but oftentimes we end up sitting at the table saying, what if we investigated X or Y? Let's get an engineer involved early on and take a look at that. So when you see a slide like the bottom one with the lifetime energy savings here, the trend has been going up, but I would say temper that with, there are these community grants, there are these design assistance grants in here, and some of those don't have any energy savings yet. So I won't count the energy savings on a design assistance grant that leads to a big PV project somewhere. That'll come in the UDOL grant savings. So
I think the library is a perfect example of an energy design assistance grant that started with you were working with like Iconergy, I think it was, and your design team, Jody, was working, and they came to us and requested a design assistance grant, and then went into the UDOL grant, and now you've seen the energy savings from the library. So,
and also I just wanted to point out that something the core board talked about at our last meeting, and we're going to bring to the P&Z tonight, is a recommendation. It's not perfectly related to this, but it goes into the REMP program. We're looking at those who choose to put renewables on their home instead of pay a REMP fee. We're looking to have those people go and chat with CORE about that system and whether or not they've maximized that system to the greatest extent possible, because I think what Marty and his team are finding is that people might say, okay, well, because of the REMP fee, we have to put 4 panels on. But really, if they put 6 panels on, it might be worth that extra small amount of money because CORE can help with that offset. And they may actually do a much better job of sending energy back to the grid or getting closer to net zero in their own home. So that's one of the recommendations we're looking at. If someone is utilizing, is in the REMP program due to our codes, but is choosing to put renewables on their home, that will have them go check in with CORE as kind of a design assistance before anything is actually developed. So we're looking at putting that in our code, and that's going to be reviewed tonight.
Great.
Rachel, please.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Cindy. That's really very interesting and should be positive. It reminds me of something we've talked about with the on-site wastewater treatment systems, and that is to ensure that they're functioning upon resale. And I don't know if we have any sort of, I just can't recall through the rent program if people have put on-site items on there to be ensured that they are, with an eye, to be still functional when they resell the property.
Right.
That's a really good point. I mean, we've taken your advice or request over the years. All of the public systems that are installed are monitored, and actually we can monitor them, but we haven't done anything like that.
Well,
we've
it might be
talked about that
something for
before.
P&Z to take a look at if we're upping the code, so that, again, you know, 10 years later, and of course our example is looking at either the post office or the airport, where there were much, much older systems built in the 80s, which they became dysfunctional and were just taken out. And so we need to assure that if someone's avoided the payment in lieu fee, it stays.
Yes, I completely agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that note, very quickly, just on residential, I'm just thinking about all the empty homes in our neighborhood, second homes that are empty most of the year. If we could encourage all those people to put in a system that would at least cover their energy costs while they're not there, just the maintenance level, so it's not drawing, that would be a plus, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a base, you know, a hurdle that's easy to meet. You know, while the house is just in maintenance mode, can that be
Offset that.
offset that? Just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay, moving to grants. So we
Yes.
Yes, so we have a UDOL grant slide before we get to this year's batch. Just sort of trends in the program, and I broke my rule here. I'm showing you lifetime energy savings over time, year over year here. So, you know, I think the focus of the UDOL grant, we're really trying to hit at the carbon impact. The way we really do that typically is through energy reduction. This is the bulk of our program expense each year, obviously. So this is where we try and get the big ideas and the big projects done. And I think our challenge here is just to get at the table when projects are being designed and when they're going to ComDev. We want to be, you know, involved in these as soon as possible before decision makers maybe put the fire out on things that could potentially be done in partnership with CORE. So that's our biggest challenge.
What was the jump in 2016 in dollars? That's a pretty significant change from
per
15
metric
to
ton.
17.
That's in
per
carbon.
Metric ton, yeah, but I mean, but still, that's a
Per
huge difference.
That included the $500,000.
You must have done something really fantastic. then.
2016 was the APSHA year. It was the year we
added
Probably the library
$500,000
year, too.
Mhm.
Would that not mean that the projects were less efficient in terms of,
The
you
projects
spent more
that year?
dollars
It's
per
Yes,
metric
yes, we
ton,
spent
so
more
the
dollars.
projects
That's
weren't
right.
as efficient that year,
I
is
believe
what I'm
that's-
reading it as.
Yes, that's
and-
correct.
And I believe it's why that's why I mentioned APSHA. I'm wondering if that was what that is, because the dollar per carbon reduction unit was pretty high there, because we were basically paying for all
Right,
of those
right.
upgrades.
Yeah.
And we
didn't have the
also
matching
didn't
dollars.
know what that savings would be until later.
Right.
That's right.
Until a year.
That's
Got that a year
that's
later.
Just significant.
Yeah.
So, looks like you did things differently in 17.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, proposed,
So this is the.
So proposed batch for this year, however you want to do this, I can go through all, there's only 5 of them recommended for funding this year, so I could go through all 5, or we could go one
I
at
don't
a
know if there's
time.
questions. Does anybody, I do have a question on the very first. What is
Sure.
EERE?
Energy efficiency and renewable energy. So these
sounds like-
advanced meters will enhance the energy efficiency and renewable
I thought it was
energy.
something really eerie.
It looks like it is.
Sorry.
But I mean,
I
really
get
the-
into my geek speak sometimes, I
Yeah, I
guess.
know, like,
Really, the gist there is they're still on analog meters here in the city limit, and so guys go around and they read the meter and they record on a piece of paper and it gets put in a spreadsheet.
that's for
so
city
City of
Electric.
Aspen Electric Utility. So they came to us with a request to help them fund digital meters, smart meters, right? And so people think of smart meters, they have all kinds of connotations. When energy managers hear smart meter, they're like, this is an opportunity to actually manage your efficiency programs and
Right.
renewable energy programs. So whether it becomes time of use billing or whether it becomes just proper management of your grid, all of this is going to be enabled through this program. And there's a huge carbon savings number associated with this, which really surprised me. You can't really put these new meters in with the old grid. You've got to do some upgrades on the old grid before you even put the meters in.
Right.
So there's by far, I think 75%-ish of our energy savings estimated for this year's batch is in line number 1 there, the city project. So it's a huge amount, 1.3 megawatt hours of estimated savings just from transmission losses and everything that's going to be upgraded. So.
And the other thing that's really helpful, it could potentially help the homeowners save more money because you'll be able to download the information about how much your house is using, and if you care, then you'll be able to do something
What
about it.
did we plug in that we shouldn't have?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have access to a house in New Mexico through a small co-op that provides electricity, and I can see what that electricity uses, on a daily basis. It's pretty cool.
Cool, yeah. So, do we want to let's just do specific questions. What's the Farm Collective? What is that?
That's out at Cozy Point. They want to start an alley cropping project where they will research the impacts of, typically agriculture is a carbon intensive, it's a
Right.
carbon producer, maybe carbon methane, greenhouse gas producer. So they're trying to figure out ways how agriculture in the valley here anyway could be flipped to a net carbon sink. So they're looking for, carbon sequestration is nothing new, but just if we're strategic about it and if we learn some lessons from alley cropping and creative ways to use the land we have here, can we also have an impact
Well, there's
on
a
carbon?
big conservation easement project going on in BOCC County, 25,000
Oh, really?
acres. And the second 25,000 is going to be carbon sequestration. It's small prairie grass or short prairie grass.
All bird grass.
Yeah, and it's a special project, and it's going to have huge carbon, and they're going to be able to sell carbon tax credits back for at least $100,000 a year that'll go back into the conservation easement.
That's great.
In BOCC County, it's huge.
It is, and it's back.
Be a total of
Is that
50,000 acres.
Crestone?
What?
Is that Crestone?
No,
No, it's
Tobacco is
it's
Lamar.
it's Springfield.
Lamar
Oh,
area,
it's
Springfield.
It's Springfield.
It's like
Okay.
that little
It's
tiny
Springfield,
corner
Colorado.
right
It's
before
actually
you
the
go to
ranches are
Kansas.
in Springfield, Colorado. Yeah.
So this is a small grant. It doesn't seem like it's really hitting energy, but there was a carbon component, so
It's interesting.
we're recommending
It's
it.
kind of the way I think things are going in some
Yeah.
prairie lands or farmlands, agriculture lands.
You need all aspects of carbon reduction.
Steve,
Yeah.
did you have a specific?
I had questions about things that weren't selected.
Okay.
And one was, and they're not on this one, but on our packet material, and one is the first one's Four Winds. What is
Right.
Four Winds? Is that in Hotchkiss, the Four Winds Foundation, or what?
No, I'm glad you asked. It's an amazing project. We are currently in an open design assistance grant with them. Their project team is super dedicated to a net zero campus up above Glenwood Springs, right next to Ski Sunlight. So it's above 4 Mile Ranch up there. Fantastic project, still a little early. I think they applied this year. We're encouraging them to apply next year. And in the meantime, our design assistance grant is furthering sort of the pencil sharpening and sort of being hopefully more realistic about some of their goals. I think they're shooting for the moon, and we're trying to get them to sort of stay focused and go piece by piece here. But it's an amazing team. They're very dedicated to this idea of a net zero campus, and it'd be sort of an ecotourism opportunity for the valley, and these folks will be experiencing a net zero campus. So it's really exciting. We just thought it was a little early.
Define campus.
Sort of a retreat. Like if you think of an eco ranch, the first project's going to be a big barn reno into sort of the main ranch building, and that's where the community activities would be. And then there's a housing component, there's an agriculture component.
First, I thought they're building a school up there. They're gonna have so it's a campus.
They'll have
just
classes up there.
It will be an educational opportunity,
Yes.
among other things.
Yeah. It sounds amazing. So we're really excited.
Then the second item is the town of Snowmass Village applied for 3 different grants.
Yes.
They're all PV systems on different public buildings there. And then you only selected one, but then you didn't even fund it at what they were requesting.
Full amount.
My thought is we should fund their $174,000, the whole thing for the town hall, just to really support them, because it looks like they're planning on doing 3 projects, spending a lot of money that they're not gonna be getting any grant money for the Mountain View apartments and their public works building.
Yeah.
You know, let's see why they didn't
So,
fully fund.
and then I guess, why did you pick the town hall project over, say, the Mountain View, which would have had really good solar exposure there?
Sure. Yeah, I can share with you the summary of the grant review committee. I feel like they did want to support all 3. I think the budget limitation was on the front of their minds. Due to these other projects that they also wanted to support, they felt like, well, let's pick the one that we feel like is the most visible to the public to start. And I share your perspective that it'd be nice to fund the full amount for this project. I think that sends the message that we really want to see that one go forward. So I appreciate that comment. But that was their perspective. They wanted to focus on one and quote unquote fully support it. By the end of the conversation, they had to whittle it down. So
They'll still be able to do the project with the 110,000 versus the 174.
I believe so, yes.
We haven't asked them.
We haven't asked them.
That's always been one of our things, is if we whittle it down, will the
Right.
project totally go away, or would it be worth our
Yes.
while to try and figure out how to fund it? So that
think it's a fair
may come
point.
back at another time, if it's approved tomorrow, and the second reading.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's a good point.
Yeah, and then, I mean, another point, you're funding the same level for the Roaring Fork Club. Who could afford to pay the whole thing out of the money in their checking account right now? They're not hard pressed for money at the Roaring Fork Club.
Yeah.
You're paying them the same amount of funding as the town of Snowmass Village. So
Sure.
it seems to me inequitable, but then I don't have the figures on energy saved and all of that too, which I know you
That's 63%.
consider that as part of the
And
equation.
we also have to put out there, we've never put out a means test
Right.
on these things. And we can't start imposing that now to say, oh, you have more money, so you can't qualify for the program here. It's not a means tested program, and we don't have access to their books either, so we don't know if they're behind on funding the new roofs on their buildings.
So in Cardiff Mesa, that is the new campus off of 4 Mile. It's on that side of the river there, kind of by the
Bottom.
airport.
Yep.
It's an interesting opportunity there. I've actually seen it under construction.
Absolutely. Yeah, Pete Waller's been working on this, and we've been talking for 2 years about this project. To see him finally come and request funds for it is pretty exciting. We talked at one point about net zero. It's just not in the cards for the school district housing there, but they are doing some pretty innovative things with the shell, and they're doing zip walls, and they're going above and beyond code. So it's a
I
good
thought they were
project.
ready for occupancy. Are they getting close?
They're getting close. Yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting project over there.
So we
Interesting
supported.
neighborhood over there.
Yes, we supported blower door tests early on to inform the rest of the units to make them very airtight and properly ventilated. So it's been a good one.
Great, so do we have any other grant that we wanted to discuss in your general grant opportunities, like for funding core itself?
Yes, so you have a memo, thank you for that segue. So you have a memo as part of your packet that lists out our request for 2019, and we're requesting $2,585,000, $585 and $958 for 2019, and that would support not only the Randy Udall Energy Pioneer grants, but then that also supports the rest of our programs, our community grants. We've requested $100,000 for that. Design assistance grant, we requested $80,000. Our income qualified, we've requested $37,500. As we mentioned, that's got a lot of support from the Energy Outreach Colorado program as well. And then our Net Zeros program, that's a grant for individuals in multifamily units, and we'd like to continue that program. And then we've rolled our residential and commercial programs, our Energy Smart programs. The total requested is $660,000. You can see that's broken down into assessments. Quick fix items are those items like light bulbs and pipe wrap and water heating jackets. And then our residential rebates. And we've combined our residential rebate pool into energy efficiency and renewable energy. Because as George and Cindy might recall, again, last year we outspent, or we overspent our budgeted amount for the renewable energy.
And there was a deficit.
And there was some money left over, and so rather than we'll always keep the core board apprised, but then we won't necessarily need a shift of budget during the course of the year, or at the end of the year. And then we're requesting $210,000 for our commercial rebate program, and that includes renewables and energy efficiency. And then our small lodge program, that's a program we match with the city of Aspen. They contribute $50,000, and that's targeted to the 12 lodges in the city of Aspen to keep them unique and affordable and energy efficient. And then our other programs are climate action planning. We were requesting $50,000, and that's to support that regional climate action planning that I mentioned earlier, where we're working with the communities. We may need to hire a consultant. We're looking at doing a bit of a transportation analysis this year. And so that'll help us develop some tools for that group. And then our engagement in marketing is we're requesting $90,000. And we're again requesting $100,000 for 2019. In 2018, we requested that amount. Again, it was not earmarked for a specific project, but we used that money to support it. For our 2018 dollars, we used that to support this Basalt Vista project. And it was great because we were having these conversations. We talked about it. We brought it to the core board, and we were able to say, we have these funds available. So it's not just it's kind of I guess a one-off, if you will, but it's to do something big, right? That's what we want to do with that. And then for our administrative, we're asking for $200,000 this year, and our program delivery is $700,000. And that's where we get our total funds for our programs.
So I have a question. Not to say anything about you, Mona, and your job you do, because you do a great job. But the community grants and the design assistance grants are all administered just by you. You're the
I signed it,
authority.
yes, I approved them.
So, so you go back, and if you have questions, I know you well enough to know that you would bring them back to anybody or to the board and say, I have an issue here, and I want to make sure that it's clean and it's supported. Because I know we always used to have that opportunity when I was on the core board many years ago for the core, because it just made sense for those grants just to come through you.
Yeah, because they're small things. They might be $2,000 to sponsor a project. It might be $10,000, and the maximum for community grants is $10,000 still. And the idea is you can, I always think of something that you can't do that's not big enough for a Randy Udall grant, and it may be out of cycle.
I was going to say it's out of cycle. It's something there's a program that could go on tomorrow, but we can't wait for 6 months or a year.
An example is we've been using funds from the grants for August Haas, who's been doing our energy analysis work with us to take forward. So we've been very thankful for those grants.
Yeah, and it also supports some of the consulting to help the communities get the codes adopted. We've been working with Amanda Poindexter and Jeff Dickinson, and that technical assistance with compliance and just understanding how the codes work. So, REMP's a little bit different, codes might be a little bit different, and they just had a training last night in the town of Basalt to introduce their Sustainable Buildings Regulations to contractors and communities. So
Well, I know sometimes schools will come forward.
No,
Excuse
exactly.
me, and say, we have a project, we need $500, or we need $1,000, and it's a great opportunity. So I just wanted the public to know that there's oversight, and it makes sense. It makes good sense.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we supported that high school to get composting going this year.
Yeah, I know
So
that.
that was really good.
Rachel?
Well, and along with that, Patty, I'm really glad you asked about the oversight, because if a project is not going forward, money is not dispersed until they're sure it's going forward. So even though the
Yes.
grant has been allocated, if there's any snags, it doesn't go forward.
That's correct. We don't really even do partial funding unless it's just really critical. But until it's complete, we don't issue
And
funding
we
until
may
it's
be having a
completed.
broader discussion about that at some point, I believe. That's kind of in the works.
For partial funding?
No, for funding, John, help me with this, for funding will not be distributed to core until such time as it's ready to go out to individual projects.
Yeah, so for the
Bigger
grant
discussion.
funding, just the timing of the disbursements will be once the grants are qualified and due for disbursement. So CORE won't be holding on to rent funds ahead of time. It'll be almost a direct
When they need to go
pass-through.
out.
Yeah, and it's just really a pretty small change in how we're doing the accounting side. Next
Years
year,
ago, it used to be very confusing, and I know that's changed dramatically in many years.
next year, you'll see in the budget process, there'll be a little bit bigger change, which will, again, I think just have small process changes. The city has been collecting and holding our REM funds in an agency account. We found that we did not have an IGA governing that relationship, and so when we talked to the city about that, I think both they and our finance staff came to the conclusion pretty quickly that it'd be easier and cleaner for us to go ahead and collect an account for our own rent funds in the city to collect an account for theirs. I'm not necessarily seeing a huge difference in process for CORE,
Yeah.
because we'd still have
It's gonna be a kind of an
this.
oversight.
The only real difference is the board will have to go through a formal appropriation of those funds versus a resolution.
We're good at that. And so are you. Okay, any other questions? Because we are seeing you tomorrow to discuss this on first reading. And second reading is the 22nd, I believe.
I believe that's right.
It is.
Any other questions? Steve?
Just a comment, I think it's amazing all the different things that CORE does. When you look at the whole list of all the projects you do and the different individuals and groups that you have aided, it's pretty astonishing, actually. So thanks to what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mona, how long have you been with CORE now?
Just 6 years.
Just 6 years.
Just
It's been
6
a great 6 years.
She's just getting started.
You just getting started.
Yeah, right? I know.
All right, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
we'll
you
see
all
you,
very
we'll
much.
see you tomorrow.
Thanks
Same
for coming.
place, tomorrow in our new meeting room for our first regular meeting. Thank you.
This room, right?
This room.
You keep saying
This
our
is
new
it.
meeting room, like, isn't this
This is it.
it.
Okay, great. It's
So
beautiful.
John, I know we have a special guest who's kind of waiting. Is he available? We could always bring him in. I saw him out in the lobby.
Oh, did you see him poke his head?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
If it's
sorry. I
you.
didn't know.
I'd rather than have him wait for open discussion, if he's available. If not, we will move to our prep for our BOCC retreat. But let's see what John comes up with if Greg's out there. I don't know where John's going with it, but. And then don't forget at 4 o'clock, we move over to City Hall.
Right.
City Hall is hosting, and Rachel, you still need to sign the gold ribbon
Oh, okay.
today. And everybody remember to put your little cards in the box. And we have some time before it gets buried. Okay. No sign? Okay.
Not out there. I think it might have been Joey poking his head.
You look like
No,
Joey.
it was, I saw Greg standing in the lobby.
Oh, okay.
I did
Joe-
see Joey poke his head into.
Joey did poke his head.
So we are gonna go to our prep for our August 21st BOCC retreat. Oh,
Or
no, we're gonna move you ahead on our agenda.
You are.
If you would like to come forward and introduce yourself for the public record in our beautiful new meeting room,
It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
we're happy to see you.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Ladies, you can sit up here with, don't be afraid of him, he's not nothing to you.
go ahead and
ahead,
have a
take a
seat,
seat.
Greg.
Can I
Yeah.
sit down? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Surround him.
Okay.
Yeah, don't let him get away till he makes an announcement.
No, no. So for the record, you are?
I'm Greg Winkler. I'm the regional manager for the Colorado Department of Local Affairs.
It's so nice to see you.
It's so nice to be
Our
here,
grand opening.
Welcome.
and thank you for the invitation to bring me here today. It was your ceremony outside was absolutely wonderful.
Thanks, Ray.
But,
And the building's amazing.
and it is. I got a tour just now, and there's lots of nifty stuff that you have here. So I especially like the patio. I would.
On the third floor?
That's where you would find me. I don't know what you're going to do.
I can keep an eye on you there, because that's my window right there.
I understand. I understand. But I had the good fortune of being able to meet with Scott Thompson of the Basalt Fire Rural Protection District, and met with Ryan Mahoney. And then it just so happens that I also have a letter that is penned by my supervisor, Mr. Halter, that congratulates Pickens County and Garfield County on the successful award of a broadband grant in the amount of $1,055,898.
Yippee, we got it.
Yes.
The project, I have to tell you, was such a gem when I saw that Pickens had an application and Garfield had an application, and then Kara talked to me and said, we're going to talk. What came out of that and what we were able to do with the last of the $20 million that we set aside, because now we only have $76,000 left, and I wish that was $5,076,000, but.
We'll work on that in this legislative session.
Okay, and you know, I really would appreciate that, because I think the General Assembly missed an opportunity last time, but that's only my personal comment, not any part of the department's.
I think we can agree with that.
Yeah, but congratulations. I mean, this is going to be something that's really good for the Roaring Fork Valley, that's good for Pickens County, and good for Garfield County, and good for the state of Colorado. And we're just pleased that we could give that small investment to the monies that you guys have put
Well,
into this.
we thank you. We truly thank you. You do a great job, and you're so great with Pickens County. And I know the last time we got an award, it was Lamar. I think you had to drive to Lamar. This time it was Cortez.
Beautiful part of the state.
Yeah, so our staff has been very excited about touring the state of Colorado.
We try to move it around. You don't have an application in this time, but you'd be able to go to Burlington. And if you want to come out to Burlington in November, you know.
Just to listen.
I
Just
just
to
heard
listen,
there's
right?
$76,000 left.
That might be the cost of getting to Burlington.
Yeah, and the hard part is that I have $4 million worth of applications in
Oh,
broadband
gosh, Greg.
just this cycle. And so we're going to put forth those applications. I've asked to put them forth as a full application, recognizing that we only may be able to fund them $1 million each.
Yeah.
If they were to get funded, but I'm going to have them be put forward in a good way.
We're very excited, and we're doing, our staff does a great job, so we thank you and for all your efforts in working with us, and we appreciate it, and we'll keep doing a good job for you, we promise.
Okay, that's good.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
And thanks for the time.
Yeah.
It was so
good to
great
see
to
you all.
see you, Greg.
And
It was good to see you.
Hey, this is very nice.
Yeah, beetle kill.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah,
know.
I was telling Phyllis that
This inlay.
after 20 years, I finished my basement.
You
And-
did.
Yes, and we
And
trimmed it in
used-
beetle kill.
Yeah,
You
very
And the
nice.
bar. And,
Do you
and-
remember how hard we worked at Northwest Cog on bark beetle, so
Yes.
Yes.
This is
Yeah,
very
it's
special.
it's fitting. It really is. So that's good.
if I get really nervous, you're gonna see me going like this. It feels really good,
I understand.
beautiful.
And Patty, if you wouldn't mind, just from staff's perspective, extending our thanks to Greg. He's helped us tremendously throughout all of our grant applications. And Pickens County wasn't always in line the way
Yeah.
that we've been able to get in line now. I think with really good projects, they're going to be a good public benefit, and hopefully through our partnerships, a model for the state. And Greg's really provided a lot of leadership at DOLA and for us for that. So I just want to be sure we recognize that before
He's excited about it.
Excellent.
Did you ever stop by the Basalt Library? It's a beautiful building.
You know, I was there the day they christened it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I drove over that night because they said there was going to be a ceremony, and then I found out it was just people are going to drink beer and eat food.
So you went?
It's a Pickens
And I
County, it's a
went.
Roaring Fork Valley ceremony.
That apparently that's a ceremony in Basalt. So no, I drove home that night because I had to be elsewhere the next day.
Greg helped us with a grant for the Basalt Library.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it was
and
great.
I was talking to Ryan today, and I've been talking to Phyllis about some things that you guys got coming up, and we're going to see if we can work those. I mean, if I can get Aspen a $25,000 grant, I can surely get you guys some more money.
Very good.
And thank you, and you can come see us anytime you want.
Yeah.
Well,
Always welcome.
nice digs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank
It's
you.
a beautiful
Thank you.
building.
All
Thanks,
right.
Greg. Thank you very
Drive
much.
safe.
You bet.
And please
Yeah.
thank your boss for us too, would you?
I will.
Yes,
I will.
Tell him to come visit our new building.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, we're amplified now, so we'll have to play with that for feedback, I guess.
okay. So we are now moving to our prep for the August 21st BOCC board retreat.
Yeah, and so this is really a mid-year retreat that we had identified as an opportunity for us to do a check-in. This is not to repeat what we just did in February, but more a mid-year check-in. Obviously, this is a time set aside for the board to weigh in. I really had three general kind of topic areas that I, if left to my own devices, would build into an agenda for you all. One would be basically just a check-in on how we're doing on our big priorities. We had identified a set of big priorities, our big rocks as we like to call them. Doing kind of our mid-year plus delta, and do we need to do any course corrections at this point? The other item would be just to do a check-in on our working agreements and how we're living by those at this point. And then number three, which the board had mentioned in previous meetings, was maybe looking forward to how we might be handling the transition that'll be taking place at the end of the year. So those would be the three general kind of characteristics. And the reason for the transition is more if, as we're going through budget and such right now, if we need to be thinking about staff time differently or such to cover legislative issues or whatever it is, it'd be good for us to have a heads up on that now versus trying to deal with it in January.
Okay. Board okay? Yeah, George.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of time allocated for these topics, unless I'm missing something. Certainly, working agreements shouldn't take very long. The big rocks and update. I mean, for me, I'd like to have a discussion or a conversation to begin with what we're going to be doing with Phillips Trailer Court. I mean, that's a big topic. I think we need to allocate some quality time on that. And I'm not sure where else we're going to find that time to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point, but I'm just not sure, are we ready to have that discussion, John? I know we're just trying to bring somebody on board to help us with some planning. I don't know if that person's here, so I don't know where we are on it.
Yeah, we're finalizing our contract with, we are bringing a group to guide us through a planning process. However, I think a conversation that the board could have would be more at the vision level for what you're trying to maybe achieve. As long as you're not it might be a little premature to dive into specific direction until we have some facts on the table.
Got some ideas out there.
But to understand what the vision of this board is could probably inform that discussion and planning process going forward, because I don't know that we as staff have that yet. I think our intent was to work with the planning group, put the facts on the table for you guys, and put the last thing that the board asked for was almost a menu of options, kind of 2 or 3 scenarios, so that you could kind of evaluate the impacts of those scenarios from a physical development perspective, as well as an infrastructure cost perspective, as well as what it means for affordable housing. I don't think we'll have that for you on the 21st, but I think if the board wanted to have a vision discussion about what you would like to see, then we can take that into consideration as we're doing other planning
Yeah, I think that's a
exercises.
good idea, to do it that way.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, at least for me. The other two things is, depending on how tonight's conversation goes with the city, we may want to have some further discussion just amongst ourselves, because that's going to be an ongoing dialogue. And then the airport, I know we've got the EA out there for the public comments, but just to have perhaps, as you say, that's probably one of those big rocks as a check-in to see how we're doing in terms of the process and timeframes and where are we going next after the EA comment period is over.
Yeah, that was gonna be my suggestion, to tag that into, just so the time frame and, you know, what we can be planning ahead for. Because we're gonna be getting budget on our agendas, so we're gonna maybe need to be thinking about time to have those bigger discussions.
Yeah, and it'd probably be good for me to have some time to preview for you kind of where staff is at and thinking right now, because we're going to need to, as we look at this project, really think about changing our building capacity in the organization for it,
We're
just
talking
like
the
we
airport.
did. Yeah.
That small project we're gonna do at the airport.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what we did here for the building that we're now enjoying, that took building some capacity, I think, to pull off the way that we did. The airport's going to be a whole nother order of magnitude of thinking along those
So that should be a good
lines.
starter conversation.
And again, we may not have the final for you, but we can start to introduce our thinking on that.
Is there anything else, Rachel?
Well, I was just trying to recall when we set this date and we're setting it at ending at 2:00, was that because there were conflicts with the board members? I appreciate and I believe in all the topics that everyone has raised that should be discussed there, and I think it's really good having this kind of mid-year check-in, pre-budget season. But as John fleshes it out, it may need to go after 2. You know, if we have all these topics and aren't just going to touch on them really briefly. So
can get
I
back
just
to
want
some.
to, because I just wanted to double check it wasn't because we had to end by 2.
No, I think you just picked a
It
time.
was more just kind of, I think it was a little arbitrary in
Sure.
thinking
Okay, well, that's
half-day-ish,
kind of what I
yeah.
wanted to clarify with the board, that given this agenda and the work that you put into it.
Or you can let us
it
out
may-
early.
You may end up going a little later than the 2:00 we have
Yeah.
scheduled now. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And that will be up in our new Maroon Bells room, so.
that will be upstairs in the maroon chairs. Review of future agendas.
Just a few things of note for you. Next week, we'll actually be doing some training on technology for all of us, so we'll spend an hour. It probably won't be very exciting for the public. We'll see if we're really going to televise
we
that
need
on
to televise
grassroots.
that.
We probably won't.
Do I need to be here for that, John?
Yes, you especially need to be here for that, Patty. On the 14th, we'll look probably under open discussion or such to add a prep for Lake County. We'd typically be doing that probably on the 21st, but we're going to be doing our retreat that we just talked about, so that's not showing up on there. On August 23rd, we have on the future agendas the CCI Mountain District meeting, but I wasn't sure if anyone was going to that.
Yeah,
You
no,
are going.
I've
Okay.
RSVP'd,
I'm
and
sorry,
I've answered
Rachel.
yours twice, and
Oh, yeah,
and
somehow
directly to
I
Eric.
missed that. Okay, I'm
Steve, are you
sorry,
going?
Rachel.
Yeah, I think we're both going, and I
Okay.
let Catherine know that
And
we
you're
could
going
probably
too?
carpool would be okay. She said she looked it up, and it's about 2.5 hours.
Where is it?
Yeah,
By
it's
phone.
not-
It's
it's-
over in Pagosa Springs,
Pon-
that's right.
Poncha Springs.
Poncha Springs.
So it's just over the pass and
Oh, okay.
down past Salida.
yeah,
Yeah,
or
see,
even-
that's what it
even
was.
with
I was
Salida,
thinking it was
actually.
further past, but, so we'll do that in a day trip and just coordinate when we're closer in.
Okay. And then you may see that we have an emergency ordinance actually scheduled a little ways out around approving COPs for the ambulance. That has to do with we're planning on doing a private placement on those because that COP, Certificate of Participation issuance, is fairly small. So you can typically do better if you do a negotiated offering. But typically what happens is you've got a narrow time frame between the time that you negotiate that final and need to make it effective And so the emergency ordinance, because it becomes effective immediately, will allow us to take
Okay.
advantage of that negotiated rate. So if you are scratching your head why we've planned for an emergency ordinance, that's why.
Okay.
And that's all I have on future
I
agendas.
have one question, and I don't know who can answer. I'm looking at Cindy Hoopin. Commercial recreation? Can you just give
Oh,
me a
yeah.
quick definition of that, Cindy, so I haven't,
Yeah. That would be when companies come and operate recreational activities in Pitkin County.
so they want to use the county roadway for bike tours?
Roadways, we're kind of combining all of that. Open Space and Trails has their own
They have a
permitting
permitting
process now. Community Development has permitting on the books, and it does affect public roadways and public safety.
Okay, all right, so that's what I thought, but because I thought we already kind of do it, but this is trying to make sense out of what we're doing.
Yep.
Okay. And then, John, just would you ask staff at some point to make sure we still have the library listed for most of our meetings toward the end of the month? Just so the public knows we're really, really in this building.
Yeah, we
We
put a
thought
sign
we'd
up
see how
over
this
there.
meeting went
And then we'll
first,
just jump
yeah.
over there, just so we can feel at home. I think that's it. Does anybody else have questions?
Now, I just would note for the board, as you may have seen, that I will not be at the regular meeting of the 26th of September. It's the Sonoran Institute, and we're presenting some water information from QQ. So if any applicants want to have a full board, we always try to tell them in advance. It's their decision.
Yeah, you're
full or
already
not.
on there for no Rachel.
Yeah, I just, again, want to point that out to the board, too, in case other absences might be coming up.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Seeing none, I'm going to go to our board open discussion.
And I'll have a couple items after Cindy.
Okay.
Hi. Cindy Hubin, Community Development Director, and the open discussion today is on CC4CA, which is the Colorado Communities for Climate Action. And my understanding is I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to hurry along here. We have met as a group. I'm your representative along with Steve. We met June 28th for our annual retreat, and revised our policy agenda for the year. That's been attached in your packet. It's where we're going forward with legislation and different concepts that we feel are important and should be brought to the level of the legislature or working with the governor or different groups. So that is moving forward. We just wanted to inform you of those policies and of that direction. And the second thing is that as CC4CA, we have joined as a party to the rulemaking for the Air Quality Control Commission's process looking at air quality standards for vehicles in the state of Colorado. And wanted to inform you and let you know about that action. And then also, I have 2 questions, but August 16th, we've been asked to testify as well before the Air Quality Control Commission about car emission standards. And Steve has already actually testified once and thought maybe someone else might be appropriate from the Board of County Commissioners. If you're interested in testifying, we have talking points. It's August 16th. It's in the morning. And I understand that John Peacock might also be down in the area and potentially helpful as a speaker as well. But wondering if there's any board members that might
I have
be
to look
interested.
at my schedule, but I'm just so crazy
I
busy.
could be down there if there are no board members, because I'm
I've
going to be
made
down
a
on.
commitment. That's the day Club 20 is going to have a webinar on all the ballot issues that are coming up, so I can't.
Is there any other member of the board is interested?
I'd be interested.
I'll look at schedules and then we'll,
Check schedule and see
and
if I
check with Cindy and,
can juggle that. Yeah.
yeah. Especially in light of what the federal government is looking at doing with car emissions, I think we need to really be paying attention to
Smart
this.
to be there.
Right. So I'll let our executive director know that someone from Pitkin County will be available that
We'll
day.
find
Yeah,
somebody.
and if you guys could let us know, Steve, did you say you were going to be there?
No,
You're not.
I testified in Montrose at
Okay.
the Air Quality Control Commission meeting there, so they've seen me their very last meeting, and we were thinking to have a
Different face.
different faces to testify.
If Greg is not available, is the board comfortable with me going down to
I'll look at my
get
schedule
testimony
too and see
then?
what I'm doing.
What's the
Okay.
location on that?
Denver.
Capital.
It would be the Capitol, okay.
And
So I'll
also,
look.
we were thinking perhaps Karen Kuhneman could go to speak on public health aspects of it, which is actually a lot of the arguments. So that's another possibility, to have another staff person be the,
Yeah, or-
testify on specific subjects.
Or Kurt Dahl even, as our environmental health
Mm-hmm.
director, either one.
Okay,
Great. Yeah, and I've asked Kurt if he's interested, and I think that he is prepared if we need him on that. The last thing I want to bring up is just budget, and you will be asked during the budget for appropriations because we are members of CC4CA, and we've been at a very low level membership of the $5,000, and they are looking to increase that budget amount to $10,000 this year, so that will be part of your consideration as your budget appropriation.
great, thanks for the heads up.
Why, Cindy, why are they looking for such a substantial increase? Is the membership growing, or in light of not having a large enough membership that the counties who are participating have to,
Come up. No, it was a discussion around at the retreat around what we want to accomplish. And we actually have grown in membership. From last year, I think we had about 13 communities, and now we're at 19 communities throughout the state, which is a large representation. But we also looked at the agenda of everything we wanted to accomplish, as well as who needed to help us make those accomplishments, with a lobbyist as well as a part-time executive director. And so we looked at the budget and kind of took a range approach and said, okay, well, this is what we want to do. So we're looking to see if communities can up the game a little bit in terms of finances so that we can actually accomplish all the things we'd like to this year.
So we could still come in at 5 or 8
You can.
or 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen, then we gotta get moving because we've gotta get.
Yes.
Also, some communities where new municipalities are joining, they're actually part of counties, which the counties are also members. And so they felt like the county was already paying a higher membership, and so some of the new municipalities, they're actually giving a break on the amount that they're paying, because they're kind of like double paying because they're already part of the county. So that was one consideration, that some new members who are small municipalities are paying less. Also, just for our information, I can't remember what Boulder's paying, but they've been paying like
I want to say 30. They've been paying a lot.
They're the ones who-
35,000 or 50,000 or some. They've been really shouldering the main financial burden, and couple other counties
And
are
from a
paying
staff perspective as well.
substantially more than even if we paid 10,000, we would still be paying way less than some of the other counties who are really have stepped up to the plate big time on this, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but the other side of the argument that we could talk at the retreat is, Boulder County's not paying CCI dues, Eagle County's not paying CCI dues. So if they've got other dollars that they can reallocate, so that's a discussion we should be having.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true, and essentially they've in many ways reallocated them towards this and towards CCAT. So they're kind of using what those dues would be that way.
Yeah.
But
And
they're
that
at a
is- you're right.
$75,000 due level for Boulder. I'm not sure about what Eagles would have been.
Okay,
with
we can
CCI.
have the discussion at our budget because we have 2 minutes before John Peacock has items. We have a few minutes to spare, but we need a
Those
break.
guys are always late over there.
I don't like to be late.
I thought we were gonna be there at 4.
Thank you.
We do, but we're supposed to
they
be
serving?
done at 3:30 so we can have a break before we go across the
Okay,
street.
gotcha.
I'd go for that.
Okay,
So
John?
just real quick, the board may be aware that during the Lake Christine fire, one of the tools that was used for air quality monitoring communication to the public were these devices called purple air monitors. We had 1 or 2 in Pickens County. We would like to extend that network. They're very inexpensive devices. They're at about $275 a piece. We've been vetting them with CDPHE and our environmental health staff. And so I just wanted to let the board know we're intending to expend $875 out of the Strategic Initiatives Fund to get 3 more to place through in areas throughout the county, just so we're ready in the event of another wildfire event or for other air quality types of concerns. And then we will be consistent with Eagle County. I believe there's some in Garfield
We're
County too.
still getting it now, I mean, just look
Yeah.
outside, so.
Where are the 2 currently placed, and approximately where you think the other 3 will go?
Well, CDPHE was going to, I have no idea. I'm sorry, Rachel. I
And
need
we
to
can
get on
answer
the
at the next
website.
meeting
I
then.
don't
That's
know
fine.
where the 2 are now. I did see them on the map at one point, and I'm just not recalling.
Okay.
CDPHE has offered to help us with placement. One of the things Eagle County did that we had also thought of is starting off placing them on government facilities, municipalities
Sure.
or population centers, because we already have Wi-Fi and
And this would be
electric
different
there.
than the PM10 monitoring?
Yeah, so those are a really different kind of device in monitoring. These are more real-time, and they provide some longitudinal
They hook
data.
to a
They do
computer
have
system.
the PM 2.5, 10, and what have you through lasers and that sort of
And
thing.
don't
So,
the purple ones hook to come to your phone? Can't you pick them up from a?
yeah, you pick them up anywhere they have Wi-Fi, or you go to a website, and it'll give you those reports.
So that will help us with alerts to people with immune system issues or
Yeah.
asthma, things like that.
And they're
related to air
accurate
quality.
enough for that. They're not as accurate as the monitors that
But
we
that's
have.
what they've been doing
Yeah.
throughout the fire.
Great,
And
thank
then
you.
just last thing, just a thank you to my staff, Catherine, Jeanette, and especially Charlotte, and everyone who really put a lot of work in on the event today. And
And it was beautiful. They did
Great.
an amazing job.
so,
Yes, and Charlotte does great bows. I'm gonna remember that at
I gotta
Christmas.
sign the bow for you.
yeah, and don't forget to sign the bow, and we're gonna do some of that for the
Okay.
time capsule and whatnot.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay,
And we do
that's it.
thank your staff, and we thank you, John. It was great. It was an amazing ceremony, and we're actually in the building. Steve, you have one more before we close?
Yeah, we just received word that Commissioner Lou Gator from Larimer County has only a few weeks to live.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
he has multiple myomas.
I know he
And
was coming down with
I
something.
think
don't
we
believe
as a
that has-
board should send a letter thanking him for his service as a county commissioner, and
CCI president this past year.
yeah,
Wow.
he's been terrific to work
Every
with.
year,
He's
last
really,
Have Kara help draft us something, and that would be great. Steve, that's a really good idea, and we need to get that done quickly.
Yeah. Oh, wow, I
Yeah.
had no idea it progressed so quickly.
Yeah, 6 to 12 weeks, wasn't it? 6 to 12 weeks?
6 to 12 weeks is what
Yeah.
they said in.
Okay, so John, is that it for us? So Grassroots, thank you. Everything went great in our new room. Thank you very much. And we are done for the day, and we're headed to City Council, so we'll see the board over there.
And we'll see Grassroots over there too.
Thanks. And tomorrow we are here at noon.